Hey, welcome back to Reclaim the Spirit. Again, this is Mark Heilshorn. I am a pastor and a theologian, and I own the effort called Reclaim the Spirit, where we are dissolving fear. And we've been doing this since March 20th. Um, so once again, I'm an ordained pastor, and I'm not in the church right now, but I'm reasserting and reclaiming myself through this venue, and looking forward to working with as many as possible to help understand what we're going through. And it's obvious that things are still as confusing and uncertain as they have been. And one look in any of the news media portals will just about send everybody into a bit of a stir and a real scratching of the head, and maybe a little anger and a little resentment, maybe a lot of anger and a lot of pain and resentment. A lot of us are out of work. A lot of us are trying to figure it all out. We've got money issues. We've got concerns about the world in general, and the unrest just seems to keep piling in. Now, I say that not to disturb you, but to kind of put an exclamation on point that what I'm going to be talking about today is the third fruit of the Spirit. We've been doing the fruits of the Spirit, which are found in the book of Galatians, written by Paul to the Galatian community about 2,000 years ago, where he writes that there are 8 gifts of the Spirit. Okay. And love a couple days ago, joy yesterday, and today we're doing peace. Peace. Oh yeah, just a small little moment and little word in the context of our theological thinking. So I'm going to try to just kind of pare it down a little bit, and I want to talk mostly about what peace means, and really what we've been sort of listening to, if we've been in the church at all over the years, or in any real religious tradition, that is that there are 2 aspects of peace. We have an understanding that we are at peace with God, um, and peace of God. Okay, now what it means to be at peace with God is that you recognize God in your life at all. Um, and you recognize that the love and the joy of God is in your heart and in your mind and in your soul. And you recognize too that you're not just a piece of plasma that developed into a human being, that you have divine purpose, that you're here for a reason. And it's not just about to serve yourself, but about to make a contribution to the world around you. And then the peace of God is that you are calm, and that you are assured that you are living that peace in your own life, and hopefully teaching and showing people the peace of God through all of your actions and your values and your morals and your character. Okay. So, and you'll note that in almost any spiritual tradition, and I don't care what it is, whether it's the monolithic faith, the Jewish, the Christian, and the Muslim belief system, or the Hindu system, or the Buddhist system, or the American Indian system, peace is placed at a premium, because a peace which passes all understanding, allows us to recognize that we are built to create bridges of trust between ourselves and other people. And that we have an understanding that that's kind of what we're all about. We are here to bind with one another despite our differences, and despite the fact that we may have a different ethnicity, a different color, a different language, a different culture, a different belief system. We are here to create bridges of peace. And let's face it, we don't see a lot of that happening very much. I mean, there is unrest, and there is anything but peace taking place, especially right now in sort of our atmosphere, COVID-19 atmosphere. You've got We've got bigotry and racial intolerance taking place right now in Minneapolis, Minnesota. There have been echoes of unrest in apartheid in South Africa. That historically we have been waging a war against peace in just about any corner of the world where one powerful group stands up against another, looking for power, looking for authority, looking for resources. That is not what it means to be a peaceful people. But what it does mean is that there's a chance to really look at peacefulness as a means to break down the boundaries that we create to separate ourselves and distinguish ourselves and to make ourselves different other than. And that the Word of God is asking us to break down those boundaries and to eradicate the divisions and the walls that we have between us in order to find a common place and a common space with each other. It was Mark Twain who writes something like, "There's no wall that a man likes," and of course, New England is full of rock walls. There's just there's there's this natural inclination to create boundaries where God is asking us to break them down, just break them down. And I can think of a few people in history that have just done the utmost they can and have proven to the world around us that it can be done. People like Martin Luther King Jr., who broke down racial barriers and bigotry and prejudice across the United States back in the 60s. And in some ways, the civil rights movement has really never ended, and nor should it have ever ended. We just kind of buried it. And I think right now we're seeing the reality of that burial coming back to life, and people are finding it convenient and easy to have bigotry and prejudice because it's easy to blame the other and to describe the other as being the villain in our lives. That's and Martin Luther King did a beautiful job, I think, of really recognizing that we're all one. We're all the same people. We all have the same blood. We all have the same flesh, and God created us for a beautiful purpose to live with in peace. How about Nelson Mandela? What Nelson Mandela did in South Africa is just a miracle. I mean, the guy was in prison for 20 some odd years, a political dissident that was thrown in jail because he wanted to create more peace. He wanted to disassemble apartheid, which was, quite frankly, a law of bigotry, allowed a law of bigotry. To put it into context, the United States could have not had a civil war and just continued to have slavery down south. I mean, that's basically what apartheid was, in a sense, and where walls of separation were created in order to create those with haves and those with have-nots, and based on color, based on color. Amazing what Nelson Mandela was able to do after the fact when he became, the head of the government and was able to break down barriers and help people recognize that we all have value. We all value no matter what our skin color is. And he did it peacefully and lovingly and kindly and with gentle purpose. I had the pleasure of meeting Mother Teresa years ago and talk about somebody who broke down boundaries religiously and spiritually and went into the places of the poorest of the poor and demanded that governments and counties and cultures take care of those who have less, and was willing to put herself on the front lines to care for the needs of others. Exceedingly peaceful person who wanted warring factions to drop their swords and to learn to love one another. Now, three extraordinary examples of people who went out of their way to live peacefully and to demonstrate peace. But what about in our own lives? What about in our own simple lives? How do we demonstrate peace in our lives? And it is the peace that passes all understanding, as we said in a lot of our sort of spiritual traditions. That when God is with us, it allows us to pass the peace of understanding. There is a phrase that is often used, was often used biblically before people would walk into a household, and that phrase was "Peace be with you." Peace be with you. And I've often used that when I was in the context of ministry. I greeted the congregation every Sunday morning. Peace be with you. Happy to have you here. Peace be with you. In other words, lay down the foundation. Lay down the foundation of peace. It is the rudiment that everything can stem from. And this, of course, is echoed through all the spiritual traditions. So I would encourage and I would invite you to think about what it means to live peacefully, especially now. You know, I, I now I've been reading the front page at least of the New York Times, and I have to put up a big boundary because any one of those stories can set me over the edge because it's describing a very unpeaceful world, and so I have to stop, pause, and pray that I lead a peaceful moment and lead peaceful day and have peaceful activities and think peacefully and meditate and pray for peace because we are a culture, we are a humanity that finds it convenient to be angry and wrathful and vengeful and to shame other people and to blame other people. It is just absurd. So, so I would invite you to think about how we can be carriers of a peaceful message of love, a peaceful message of light and joy. Okay, so let's get into a meditative thought along those lines. So it's a misty day here in Connecticut this morning, kind of mild and muggy and misty. And I kind of like misty days because it reminds me that presence of God is very saturating. It kind of coats and soothes, not to use a Pepto Bismol image, but coats and soothes everything that we are and surrounds us and surrounds everything we touch, no matter what. It's there. Reminds us that that we are in God's hands. So when you think about the misty, foggy, kind of drizzly days, think of that image of being surrounded by the molecules of God's peace in your life, and think peaceful thoughts, whatever they may be. It may be the last hike you went on with your kids. It may be peace you feel with your partner and your spouse, how you trust one another and care for one another, and how you listen to one another, and how you're listening now in a way that you've probably rarely done because we're all in the same boat. We've never been here before. It's very difficult. Yes, things perhaps are resuming, but there's the specter of the boomerang of when this thing is going to attack again, and what that might do to all the enthusiasm we try to create right now. So, but think of the goodness of that relationship that you have, the goodness of your neighbors, the goodness of those who are volunteering to wear masks and wear gloves and protect themselves because they care enough about the people around them and they want to protect themselves as well as others. It's important to really follow the guidelines and be peaceful with them and to line up with them and not fight and not resort to the temptation of just doing what we want to do no matter what. That's very selfish thinking. So it's the other thing about peaceful. Think of ways in which you can be peaceful and unselfish at this particular time, and carry this fruit of spirit with you in your day, in your evening, into your prayers, and into your thoughts and your concerns for the world around you. So again, get back to that misty message of being surrounded by God, being surrounded by His light, being surrounded by God's joy and love, and the intention that God has that we all be peaceful beings. So think about that. Pray for that. Leave room for that in your day. Open up. And even be peaceful towards those who may be angry with you for whatever reason. I had a friend get very angry with me this morning, and he was right about some stuff. And I tried very hard to be peaceful back and offer suggestions. I'm not so sure it worked, but my intention is to continue to be peaceful toward that individual, even though he's pretty mad at me. So, we're not always going to get it right. So, in your meditation, think of those people that, um, you in some particular way, because it's easy to get unrested with everything that's swirling around us right now. So, find that peaceful place in your heart, lift up those thoughts, lift up those prayers, and be peaceful. And let's just end with a prayer. God, help us be peaceful. Help me be an instrument of peace, and to sow goodness, and to sow love, and to sow joy, and to not be lured into the place where we're vengeful and wrathful and feeling the need to shame others and to control the outcomes, but to instead line up with you and help us, guide us into more peaceful, better places where we're not judging, but we're in fact loving. So be with us and guide us this day and always. Amen. And thanks very much. We'll talk to you soon.